Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 36 Minutes of Purgatory we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Healy, sitting in for Michael Patrick Rooney, who is on assignment, as they say in the business. He and Kendall Rogers both. So a skeleton crew here tonight, just myself and the fantastic Aaron Fitt, owner and proprietor of the Fantastic Fit Dogs, if you will. We were talking about this offline, Aaron, but I think we should bring it into the light. To what extent do you feel like like it is also our spring training a little bit, where you're having to get used to the rhythms of the season, and podcasting at this hour after a long weekend is definitely one of those moments where it's like, oh yeah, this is something we have to do every week now.
Yeah, and well, this is also something new we should point out for the listeners. We're recording this show on Sunday night, whereas historically we record on Mondays, and in an effort to, please our demanding listeners. We are trying to get this thing out earlier this year, and so that means if it's a skeleton crew, some weeks it'll be two of us, some weeks three, some weeks four. So be it. We're trying to get this thing out earlier on Monday. So that's something new, and yeah, it's 10 o'clock Eastern right now as we sit down to record. That's a little late for you, Joe. Daytime, #daytime Joe.
Daytime
Hey,
Joe. I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there. I'm still have some residual caffeine coursing through my veins. I think that's it. For the record, listeners, also as well, I don't think you're demanding at all, listeners. I think you're great just the way you are. That's Aaron. That's Aaron Fitt, who thinks you're demanding. You can reach him at aaron@d1baseball.com if you have complaints about being called demanding.
Yeah, hit me up.
Let's get to some ball, shall we? The biggest results, I think, or the biggest line item on the agenda has to be the Globe Life tournament, and our own Kendall Rogers also on assignment. He is, as we speak, I think he's actually headed home now, and as we're recording this, Oklahoma up 7-1 on TCU in the fifth inning, as I look at it on my screen here. So Oklahoma is barreling towards a 3-0 record in this thing. And not just a 3-0 record, but like a very impressive 3-0. Like if this holds 7-1, or if it gets even worse, it's going to be 3 easy wins for Oklahoma in this deal. We brought them into the top 25 this week. By the time you listen to this, that will be out. We have them in the top 25 based on the strength of that. And I'm kind of curious from where you're at, what has from afar, what has stood out to you about the Sooners the first few days of the season and their 3-0 record, or presumed, I don't want to shortchange TCU here making a comeback, but what looks like a 3-0 record this weekend at Globe Life?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. First of all, this is a team that we did like. And it's funny we say that, like we had them 14th in the SEC. But we also had them in our next 12 teams outside the top 25 heading into the year. And so, we liked them. But there were some questions to answer. And I think for me, number one was the Cam Johnson question. This guy, as we all know, I think a lot of people are familiar with Cam Johnson's story, enormous talent. Big left-hander, was the number one pitching prospect to show up on a college campus at LSU coming out of high school. And it's taken him a few years to figure it out. And so, like, the major question facing Oklahoma was, okay, like, there's been a lot of great buzz on Cam Johnson this offseason, but like, we kind of still need to see it. And he came out and was excellent. I mean, 6 innings, 11 strikeouts, 1 unearned run, 3 hits, 3 walks, pretty good job throwing strikes, being efficient, getting well into the game. That's very, very, very encouraging. Kind of a game changer for Oklahoma. That was the number one question we had. I think we all felt pretty good about LJ Mercurius in the number 2 spot, and boy, he was awesome for him. The transfer coming in and his first appearance in that uniform, 5 1/3, 12 strikeouts, 3 hits, also 1 run. Like, that's a really intriguing 1-2 punch. And I already kind of like some of the bullpen pieces. I know Michael Catalano was really good yesterday out of the pen form. It's a guy that I saw in the Cape and was fairly high on. It seems like there's enough firepower in the lineup too. They obviously this weekend they scored a bunch of runs and were pretty impressive. I mean, it feels like a team that, as always, we know they're going to push the action. They've got that chaos offense and all that stuff. But like, I think there's some punch in here too. It's not just like a running team. It seems like they can drive the ball with some authority. So, just all around really loud weekend for the Sooners.
Yeah, and as we speak, Cord Rager, and I'm disappointed that his last name is pronounced Rager, not Rager. That's a real big disappointment. But I'm going to believe Toby Rowland. He's the radio guy for Oklahoma, and he was pronouncing it Rager when I heard him mention him earlier in the weekend. So we're going to go with that. Shout out to friend of Highway to Hoover, Toby Rowland. He just finished 5 innings, having given up 1 run against TCU, a TCU team that came into that game 2-0 as well. So maybe they've got a little bit of a 3-headed monster in the rotation between Johnson, Mercurius, and Rager. And I think you're right about the lineup. I don't want to say they've gotten away from the chaos, because that's certainly not the case. But I also have heard that, this was talked about on the broadcast when I was listening to them on Friday, that one of the goals of this team for Oklahoma was to be a little bit more physical. I think they kind of looked at their teams and, yes, that the offense was working. They adjusted just fine last season, but maybe they felt like they needed a little bit more oomph. And I think they've got it a little bit with Brendan Brock and Dayton LaChance in particular, a couple of new faces in the lineup. Both happen to be catchers, oh, by the way. But those guys bring a little bit more physicality to the lineup than what they've had in the past. And we'll see if there's a centerpiece in this lineup that the whole thing kind of operates around, or if it just ends up being a lineup where you could take the 9 names and put them in a hat and pick them out in any order, and it probably is fine. It might just be one of those lineups, and the lineup ends up being really, really deep. I'd believe that as well. But I think my biggest takeaway, piggybacking off what you led with, is that if this is even anywhere close to the version of Cam Johnson and LJ Mercurius we're going to get all season, the ceiling for what Oklahoma can do needs to be significantly raised, because that was I had a pretty high level of confidence the lineup was going to be competitive and be able to score runs. But I mean, the Witherspoon brothers were such a big part of last year's success in getting Oklahoma to the regionals. You take those 2 guys out of there, and I was like, I'm not sure what they're really left with here. Well, it's just one weekend. I don't want to get too carried away on it, but my goodness, those 2 guys looked really, really good. It's hard not to get carried away.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. Just back, you mentioned Brendan Brock, who had a big weekend offensively, hit it in the 2-hole. At least the first 2 games, I think he had 4 RBIs in the series or the weekend opener, and then he was 3 for 4 with 3 runs. Yesterday. I mean, it's a pretty intriguing transfer piece for him. And then how about Trey Gamble? I mean, he was already kind of an on-base machine last year. That was his whole thing, more walks and strikeouts, reached safely 8 times in the first 2 games. So, get more of the same there. Just wanted to call those 2 guys out. Cause I mean, again, Oklahoma was, I think, the biggest story of the weekend. Yeah,
I think that's right. Had TCU won this game, and they still might. Again, I'm counting that chicken before it's totally hatched, but I came away impressed with TCU this weekend as well. Lineup is just so dangerous, and I think about the win against Arkansas on Saturday, and Hunter Dietz, really talented guy, and it sounded like his stuff was his stuff from a raw stuff perspective was excellent, but TCU just got to him and just ambushed him, and he wasn't able to really get his feet under him. His first start in his Arkansas career, his first appearance of any sort of length due to the injuries, but TCU is just not a lineup that you want to be coming up against when you're in that type of situation. And I think there's still room for improvement with TCU. That starting pitching they got this weekend, I mean, obviously at the front with Tommy Lepore, you kind of know what you're going to get, but Lance Davis today, Sunday, and then Mason Brassfield yesterday Brassfield was okay. He was fine. And then Lance Davis today struggled a little bit. So there's still some things I think TCU is going to need to shore up. But if this is the baseline for what they're going to be this season, I don't see any reason to come off of what we thought about them, which is that it's the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah, and Noah Franco, really good for them out of the bullpen.
For sure.
Yesterday, was it 3 innings of shutout ball, I believe.
Unhittable slider. It was just, it was gross. Yeah.
And to your point, I mean, I don't think he gave up a hit in those 3 innings. So, yeah, that's a really, really talented 2-way guy. Might wind up being, I think, an All-America 2-way guy if we see a lot more of that. That's pretty intriguing.
Yeah. So came away impressed there. What do you make of? Let me ask a little bit of an open-ended question, because we had this debate internally in one of our chats today at D1. What do you make of Vanderbilt's 1-2 weekend? And we'll talk about Arkansas. Arkansas went 2-1. I promise, Hog fans, we're not forgetting about it. But I do think it's interesting to talk about the Vanderbilt of it all, because if I told you this fact, the following fact about their weekend, what would you assume? If I said, hey, this weekend, Vanderbilt's going to hit 9 home runs as a team.
Wow.
Like, you would probably think, right? that like, oh, things went really, really well. Like if they're going to hit 3 home runs a game, like what are we even talking about? Vanderbilt's going to be fine. And yet they come out of the weekend 1-2. And I don't want to speak for him too much, but Runes was saying in one of our internal chats that he came out of the weekend feeling actually, even though they went 1-2, feeling better about Vanderbilt than when he came into the weekend feeling about them. I'm not necessarily sure I agree, but I do see where he's coming from when you consider that we're kind of just assuming they're going to pitch, and I think we still should. But if they're this physical, then that does change the way we look at the lineup, I would think. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on a 1-2 weekend for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. My eyebrows are up, all those home runs. I mean, obviously if Colin Barzie's a real guy now, I mean, I remember seeing this guy heading into his freshman year. It was in the summer in the NACBL, and he was a pretty big deal. I think it's easy to forget that. Like he was like the guy that in the league that summer, the best prospect in the NACBL before he even played a college game. Like he was supposed to be a guy, and like he's a junior now, right? I mean, it's his. I think it's his time. And like, hey, wait a minute, like maybe this guy's turned the corner. He had 3 home runs opening day. That's pretty loud against against the TCU pitching staff that has some arms. So like, he's got my attention, and obviously like the Johnstone and Johnstone combination and Johnston. God, I would hate to be a fan of later this year. What an absolute disaster.
Nightmare.
There's some nice pieces here. Braden Holcomb and Mac Whitcomb, the 2 Combs. They've got all these Johns and Combs in this team. But I mean, there's I've kind of find myself liking the lineup, and obviously Connor Fennell was Connor Fennell. I think the returns on Austin Nye look encouraging. Not a good pitching day on Sunday, but like they have arms. I feel like they're going to figure that out. They're going to wind up having like a third reliable starter. I think Nate Taylor will be fine.
He was fine today. Like it really didn't get ugly until Nate Taylor was out of the game. Yeah.
That's fair. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I'm like, listen, we ran him out of the rankings because if you're in the 20s and you go 1-2, you're going to fall out most of the time. And especially like it's early in the year, like let's reward somebody else who made some noise. And so we did that. We brought in Oklahoma and
West Virginia,
who was team 26 heading into the season and went 3-0, swept the road series at Georgia Southern. It just felt like, let's rank those guys. Like Vanderbilt will have plenty of chances to get back in the rankings. Like the fact that we knocked them out isn't necessarily like, oh, we're worried about Vanderbilt. Not at all. I don't think any of us are. I think overall, yeah, I think I am actually encouraged about their weekend.
Yeah, I think if you're going to play the devil's advocate, and I think I over-indexed on this when I was thinking about it earlier, that, so much of their offensive production this weekend came in 1 8-run inning against Texas Tech when Texas Tech was kind of throwing up on the front of its shirt, to put it in a gross way. So, but again, like we've harped for so long on the relative lack of physicality for Vanderbilt. I feel like I can't in good conscience now knock them for being like, well, you didn't score enough runs. It's like, well, okay, if they had a couple more guys on base when those home runs, because Barzie's 3 home runs on Friday were all solo home runs. So yeah, okay, if you want to nitpick, like you could have had some more guys on base there, but look, I just don't think it's totally fair to complain about offensive production when this was a weekend when they hit 9 home runs. So complicated weekend for Vanderbilt, I would say. Also could have been a complicated weekend for Arkansas. They nearly coughed up a game to Texas Tech here on Sunday, ended up coming away with the victory to go 2-1 on the weekend. I think I haven't changed anything. Nothing about what happened this weekend changed anything about how I feel about them. The one loss was to TCU, who we've talked about is very good. Gabe Gackel's start was better than the stats. I watched most of that start. It was better than the numbers would lead you to believe. So I feel positive about that. I'm willing to throw out the Hunter Deet start. Like this guy's just going to take time to get up and going again. Like how could you not? And then in relief, let's say hypothetically they need another starter. Tate McGuire was awesome in relief yesterday. 5 hitless innings for them. So there's another option right there. And then Colin Fisher was really good today, Sunday. So like feeling good about that. The offense, Ryder Helfrich hit some bombs. Damian Ruiz was a bit of a catalyst for them. So all good things for Arkansas. You take one loss on the weekend, but it's a solid loss, so nothing there to be overly worried about. And then just to wrap it up, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, tough weekends. Oklahoma State 1-2. They did salvage a win against Vanderbilt on Sunday, and Texas Tech, kind of an ugly 0-3. Especially considering they had a real chance to pick up a win here on Sunday and couldn't come away with it. So just kind of your final thoughts before we move on any of that for the Globe Life tournament.
I'm remain really high on Arkansas. I guess that's my final thought. And for the reasons you talked about, I'm bullish on Hunter Dietz. I mean, just reading Kendall's report on him, it sounds like the stuff was awesome. And I think he's just going to get, like you said, just get better and better. And you're right, like Tate McGuire. I mean, like what an insurance policy that is. But like, I kind of thought he might be the Tuesday guy heading into the year. So like they had penciled him in a starting role anyway, and he went 5 innings, like you said, 5 hitless innings. So like clearly he can be extended. So that's a weapon. And obviously like the depth of that staff is crazy. So yeah, really, really excited about Arkansas. Oklahoma State, we'll see. I think it was very encouraging that they had the bounce back Sunday. I mean, they needed that, obviously. 1-2 against 3 really good SEC clubs. No shame in that. I know people were like, people on the Everything app, Joe, were getting on Josh Holiday for like making excuses, and his post game comments on Saturday. Oh, it's loser talk. Like, they played a tough schedule and they lost a couple games. Like, it's February, man. Like, you do benefit from playing good teams, even if you lose games. Like, let's chill the hell out on that stuff, man. Like that drives me crazy. But they bounced back. They responded on Sunday, and so we'll see if the people in Stillwater have chilled the hell out. In fact, after that, I'm guessing not, Joe. But overall, I think the biggest loser of the weekend is whoever is in charge of box scores now, Joe, for
my
in
gosh.
college baseball. What an absolute disaster.
Just
looking through some of these box scores.
We need to get our own house in order. Like it's a disaster. My goodness.
I mean, it's like on all the team sites, all the official box scores on the team sites don't have the guy who started the game at the top. I mean, it's outrageous. Like, we figure it out, folks. Come on. This is an outrage.
I got a lot of messages. I put it out on Twitter to the college baseball SIDs. Twitter is the Everything app you refer to, which, by the way, I find that chill tends to be in short order these days, just in general. But I put it out on the old Everything app that college baseball SIDs like, why is this happening? And I got a lot of messages back. Shout out to my friends in the communications world. That basically it's owed to a lapse in a contract for a previous bit of software, so everyone's scrambling. Like it's basically it's software that's not working the way that it is intended to work. Is the short version of that. So we press on, and our condolences to our friends in the SID community. Those are tough jobs, and it just got made a little bit tougher through no fault of their own. So there is that. Thank your local SID. Let's move on. I'm going to let you. Well, I was going to say spin the wheel, but not really. I'm just going to let you choose. Where do you want to go next? I've got 3 options here. We could talk about where you were for most of the weekend, not all the weekend, most of the weekend, Southern Miss and UCSB. We could talk about all of the stuff happening in the Arizona part of the world. There was a number of interesting results out there. We could also talk about the biggest series upset of the weekend, which was Michigan State taking down Louisville on the road. Which of those 3 items would you like to select?
I think those are all important to talk about, and we will talk about them. But
yeah, for sure. This is not a zero-sum game. But yeah, let's go to Hattiesburg, and I'm going to clear out the paint. I'm going to toss you the ball in the paint, and then we're going to clear out and let you cook. So go ahead and just unload a little bit on the series. I have to admit, I didn't, in part because I knew you were there and you were on it. Like, I didn't really watch a pitch of this, to be honest with you. So we're going to lean pretty heavily on you here. I know it was a great finish today, which you were not there for. But it seems like a lot of our staff was watching that game. But tell me a little bit about your visit to Hattiesburg and what you saw there.
Yeah. First of all, just a wonderful series in week 1 between 2 established, Omaha type programs. I mean, both these programs have been to Omaha in the last 16, 17 years, right? I mean, postseason regulars, like produce a lot of talent. Totally different parts of the country, Santa Barbara and Southern Miss. Like, it was cool. I just think we need more of that stuff. I love this series come out of the gate. And obviously we were really high on Southern Miss heading into it. They were ranked in our top 25. We also liked Santa Barbara, a team. I think we had them in a regional in our preseason projection. I think we did 3 Big West teams, because
I believe that's correct.
Because they have really good arms, and we didn't rank them in top 25 because we needed to see the lineup. And there were some questions there, but like, I liked what I saw from their position player group. So first of all, we'll talk about Santa Barbara. Like, they're very athletic, and I saw a lot of quality, mature at bats from top to bottom, good approaches. Really like Rowan Kelly, the leadoff guy, center fielder. I think that guy is a rising star. The second baseman, Cade Goldstein, true freshman in the 2-hole. Speaking of rising stars, like, very exciting talent, live athlete, great feel for the barrel. I think he's got a very bright future. So those 2 guys, and then the first baseman, Nick Kosovsky, that they got from Ball State. He impressed me as well. Kind of a rangy frame, good athlete at first base, got some whip in that swing, had a big home run, I think, on Saturday. So there were a number of other guys that I liked, like their lineup all the way through. Even they, I think, heading into it, were like, oh boy, we don't know who's going to be where. I mean, like, there's a few positions they had locked in, but like, the projected starters were kind of all over the place. Like, you take your pick, heading into this thing. But like, they've got pieces in the lineup. They've got real arms. I mean, Jackson Flora, I was pretty effusive in my praise for him. I think it's a top of the draft type arm. Like, he could be the third Santa Barbara pitcher in the Checketts era to be the first guy drafted. I mean, Dylan Tate and Tyler Brumner would be the other 2. Like, he's got that kind of ability, and it's, we knew it was a big arm, Joe. I mean, it's like a, super athletic, tall, still projectable. He's gotten stronger, but like, it's just like there's more in the tank. And it was 95 to 98 for 6 innings, 99, like touched 100. And the thing that was impressive to me, I knew last year he threw plenty of strikes, but like, it was legit command in the zone with 4 pitches, even tossed at a 5th pitch, a little curveball he dumped over a few times as a show pitch. But like, he had the good slider last year. It's gotten better. It's firmer. I think it's a real pitch. He's got the bigger sweeper that he throws, and then he's got the changeup, which is a new weapon for him, and he threw that a bunch. And he threw it against righties and lefties with conviction and action. He's gone to that kick change grip. Last year he was a circle change guy, so like, it's a little bit of a difference maker, and we talked to several national scouts this weekend. Kendall was talking to somebody who was like, had Flora like as the top college pitcher on his board heading into the season. And I talked to a national guy who was at the start the other day, and he was like, oh yeah, like you guys were light on him, and we had him like 15, I think, on our college list, and people were like, oh, you guys were light on him. Yeah. Like, and I see it now. We were light on him. This guy is the truth. So that's exciting. And so he shut down Southern Miss the first day. And then the second day, another good arm for the Gauchos, Nathan Aceves, who's, mid-90s guy with a real good changeup, needs to probably develop better breaking ball. But like, he looked the part, and they were up 4 runs pretty early. And it's like, oh boy, like, Southern Miss could be in some trouble here, like up against another really good arm, down 4. And they just kept fighting. And Scrappy, it was Scrappy, like, give up 4. Okay, we get 2 back. And Southern Miss comes back and gets 2 more the next half. And it's like, oh, that could be deflating. And then we'll get a little solo home run. We're just going to keep chipping away. And then they just found a way to come back and win late, down 6-2, and they come back and win 8-6. And so I wasn't surprised. Like, once I started to see Southern Miss, put together better at bats and get the crowd into it, like, they were still down, whatever, 3-4 runs, middle innings. And I was like, okay, you can kind of see this is starting to come now. Like, they're this a veteran lineup. They're getting good swings. The crowd was great. Both games, big crowds that stayed engaged and were just like, anytime there was an opportunity, like, the crowd seized on it. Like, they really, they fed off each other, the crowd and the team. I think this is a really good Southern Miss team. And if you talk to some Southern Miss fans who saw them in the fall and a lot and have seen them in recent years, like, they think this is one of their better teams. and I can see why. I mean, it's what, 7 guys back, I think, in the lineup. I think you're going to see a lot of quality, again, mature at bats. There's power, there's some variety, but um, there's also plenty on the mound. I mean, Colby Allen being I think a legit ace. He was fine on Friday. Not his very best, but he was solid. And Graydon Harris, the Saturday guy, the lefty, didn't have a good outing, but like I like him. It's a tough look. It comes at you. They were great in the bullpen behind him. I think that bullpen's going to be excellent. With of course Cross Sibley still there, and Josh Ock, and Camden Clark, the exciting JUCO guy at the back end. Like there's a lot of firepower and depth there. So, the main thing for Southern Miss is I think the defense maybe is still a little bit of a work in progress. That maybe would be the one reservation I have, but like overall, I think they'll figure that piece out, and I think they're going to be very good, and certainly in the mix to host a regional. And I think Santa Barbara is another team that could, frankly, like be in that same range.
Yeah, one of my takeaways too is you mentioned just the having a series like that, and I want to double down on giving credit to UC Santa Barbara for being willing to make that trip. And and by the way, like Southern Miss is going to return that trip at some point in the near future. So like kudos to them for doing that. And I saw something similar. Cal Poly came to Campbell, and we won't go into that in depth, but Cal Poly is one of the Big West teams we had in a regional and in the preseason field of 64, and they just went and played Campbell this past weekend. And we've been critical in the past. We just generally not just D1 baseball, but college baseball in general has been critical of the West Coast sometimes for their scheduling being just too insular, and I get it. Like the weather's awesome and you can get good road games there, right? It's not just them sitting at home. It's them playing road games, but only playing teams in the Pacific time zone. We've been pretty critical of that in the past. And it should be, I should clarify, when we're being critical of them, we're not really talking so much about those two programs because they've always been relatively willing, but this is going the extra mile, going all the way across the country to get these series in is going the extra step from even beyond what those two programs have done in the past.
Yeah, good point. Real quick, curious for your impressions of Poly while we're talking about them, because this was a team that you and I think we were all pretty high on. I know Eric Sorensen was really high on them out west, but like, what'd you think of those guys?
Yeah, offensively, they're a lot of fun to watch because they are one of those lineups who knows exactly who they are. And there are some days where it's not going to be good enough, but there are a lot of days where it is going to be good enough. And it's like everyone in their lineup is willing to get their swings off early in counts, but once 2 strikes are on, they know they understand the situation. They're going to choke up on the bat. They're going to get right up on top of the plate, and they're going to let everything get deep on them. And I saw more foul balls and more like little humpback liners that some landed in gloves, some landed in the outfield, but just because they're selling out for contact. Like they do not strike out. Everybody strikes out a little bit, but I think about Alejandro Garza, who's kind of the heart and soul of that team, and he struck out 10 times all of last year, which is just an absurdity. But he's not the only one. The whole lineup is like that. The whole lineup is a bunch of grinders who are just going to fight you tooth and nail, and they're going to put the ball in play. And you saw it against a team like Campbell that, that Cal Poly took advantage of the fact that, Campbell's lineup out there has some guys defensively that aren't necessarily, as skilled as others. And so they made things happen and forced the issue on a couple of occasions against Campbell's defense and really took advantage. Side note though, Elijah Clayton at shortstop for Campbell. Who boy, that guy can pick it. Son of Royce Clayton, starting shortstop for Campbell. And, but that guy can really, really pick it. But so the offense stands out for me for Cal Poly because it just has that identity. They've got some thump, but that's not going to be where their bread is buttered. They're going to put the ball in play. They're going to put pressure on defenses. And against Campbell, Campbell broke against that pressure. And, I go back to the first game of the doubleheader on Saturday, and it's a 8-5 lead for Cal Poly, fairly comfortable. They go in the 9th inning and they put up an 8 spot, and it was just single walk, hit by pitch, wild pitch, stolen base, single double. It's just like this one after the other. They just put a coin in the merry-go-round and take off with it. So that was fun.
Can I say real quick
sure.
that you can go ahead and put Peanut Garza right now on the all-fit team in Sharpie. He's like,
Yeah.
I already
Lock it
have.
in.
I locked it in last summer on the Cape. I was like, actually, I liked him the previous fall. It's probably kind of a whiff. I don't know if he was on there last year. I think I might have whiffed on him last year. He should have been on there last year. So like, this is officially the first member of the all fit team. I love this guy. What a fun player.
Yeah, for sure. And a better defender. Like, I didn't see him last year, but Larry Lee was pretty clear about, and I read this in Eric Sorensen's fall report on him, that he's a better defensive third baseman. And you saw that he made a lot of plays that were tricky, none that like blew your socks off necessarily, but a lot of tricky plays coming in, throwing on the run, stuff like that. So really a more complete player than what he's been. On the pitching side, veteran in the rotation, right? With is it Nace or Ness? How do you pronounce that last name? Griffin Ness?
I think it is Nace. Nace,
yeah. Griffin Nace, the front end, Josh Volmerding behind him. Those two guys you can kind of set your watch to a little bit. Volmerding's a little bit behind on his preparation. Larry Lee told me that he's about a week behind everybody else. It wasn't a great start for him, but he gutted through 4 innings. But they've upgraded, I think, the pitching talent from where it was. They've added Leif Palmer from Oregon State, a big time, like funky big time arm. He was great. 5 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts in his outing. And they've got a couple of freshmen on the back end they really like. They closed out the second half of that doubleheader to finish a doubleheader sweep with 2 freshmen protecting a 1-run lead. And it's real stuff. Corden Petty is probably the name to know of the two. Sean McGrath and Corden Petty are the names. And Corden Petty was Campbell didn't have a shot against him. Like, it was, a fastball that kind of had that cut and ride profile on it, if you will. Had four swinging fastball strikeouts in 3 innings, which, that's not really the whiff pitch most folks have. So it feels like you take a team that had a really high floor, but the newcomers on the mound, I think, have raised the ceiling. I liked him a lot. I really did. And I think Campbell is a very competent, solid test for a team like that to come all the way across the country. Campbell got the best of him in game 1, but I think it speaks volumes for Poly that they took both ends of the doubleheader after losing that opener of the series.
Yeah, good. That's good stuff. I'll say real quickly, I finished my weekend down in Lafayette. I think a fun matchup between Louisiana and Missouri State, 2 teams that I think are postseason caliber clubs. Missouri State being a really interesting team, and that is extremely physical. We knew they were going to hit a lot. They did hit a lot this weekend. I think it was 7 or more runs in all 3 games. They were down 10-3 on Saturday after 7 innings. They came back and won 13-12.
I was following that game kind of passively, and I gave up on it. I was as shocked as everybody else when I saw the final score.
I was trying to decide for sure if I was going to go down there from Hattiesburg, and it was 10-3, and I was like, all right, looks like we're gonna have a rubber game. I'll just go ahead and head on down. And then I get to my hotel. I was like, oh my God, they lost. It's 13-12. Okay, so it was not a rubber game today, but it was still. I'm glad I was there because I like both these teams. And I'll have pieces on both of them this week. But you mentioned the freshman for Cal Poly. I wanted to shout out the freshman for Louisiana. They had 3 freshmen starting up the middle today. Blaze Rodriguez at short, I really like. It's like kind of Kyle DeBarge vibes, like that. A live athlete, 5'11", shortstop, hitting in the 3-hole as a true freshman, which tells you a little something. But boy, he looks great defensively. It is quick feet and transfer and all that stuff. Colt Brown behind the plate, they are very excited about. I mean, Matt Diggs dropped a Buster Posey comp on him, which I'm
no
just
pressure,
saying,
kid.
No pressure, kid.
Go get him.
And then Noah Lewis in center field, and they had 2 freshmen on the mound today at the bullpen that pitched pretty well. And so a good response by the Cajuns today after losing the first 2 days and kind of getting their heart ripped out yesterday. But I think both these teams are going to be pretty interesting. So I'll have more on those in the next 2 days.
I think I saw the Cajuns, correct me if I'm wrong, I saw in your photos wearing Mardi Gras themed. Was that? Yeah, those were fun.
Fantastic. Big fan of the Mardi Gras uniforms. Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to be pretty uniform ambivalent.
Same.
People have strong opinions on uniforms, which they're entitled to. I'm not criticizing, but it's just not for me. But when I saw those Mardi Gras, I was like, oh, now we're talking. That that was neat. All right. Let's finish up because I promised the folks 36 minutes of purgatory, and we're getting close there. So I'm going to rattle off some results, and then you kind of tell me what's interesting to you out of that, and we'll just kind of ping pong a little bit to finish off here. There was a whole lot of activity in Arizona. There were, two kind of separate tournaments, both pretty solid, happening out there at the same time. I think the most notable results out there, Michigan going 3-0 in their tournament.
Yeah.
We debated in our top 25 discussion the merits of Michigan. So I think Michigan fans, I think you could safely say your team is kind of in that 26-30 range right now after the weekend. Yep. Very impressive stuff there. K-State also 3-0 on the weekend. They batted .424 over the weekend and scored 46 runs in 3 games to win games against, I believe it was Iowa, UConn, and Penn State. 3 teams that we think are pretty good, generally speaking. So really impressive stuff there. I will see Kansas State this coming weekend at the weekend 2 of the Globe Life tournament. I'm very much looking forward to seeing them. And Nebraska went 2-0 and was trending towards a 3rd win. I'm checking the score now. They were playing Grand Canyon as we were recording here. This is good audio. People want this. People definitely want this soon to be out of date news. Yes, they beat, so they're 3-0. Nebraska went 3-0 this weekend as they polished off Grand Canyon tonight. It's another 3-0 weekend there. I think those are kind of the headlines there. I mentioned Michigan State upsetting Louisville over the weekend. That's probably something we're touching on. North Carolina swept Indiana. I think we saw that the video of that poor second baseman with that throw to kind of snatch defeat from the jaws of victory there. Houston went 3-0 in the Puerto Rico tournament. That was not the team that I would have had going 3-0 out there, but they did so. Xavier took 2 of 3 from East Carolina, which is a surprising result. Anytime a team takes 2 or 3 in Greenville, you're going to be surprised by that. But I think, at least I know, and I did the fall report on Xavier. I saw Xavier in the fall. Like, I personally was, I would say, surprised, but not shocked on a couple of fronts for Xavier. One is that, like, that team is old. That team is physical. That team is battle tested. Like, they're getting a lot of attention for their schedule this year, and I'm part of that because I wrote a story about it. But their schedule wasn't that much different last year. Like, and it's a lot of dudes back from that team that last year, if they win maybe 1 or 2 more games, they get in a regional. Those guys are really hungry. So like I said, I was surprised because nobody should expect to go into Greenville and win a series there. But I was not absolutely shocked given what I know about Xavier. So anyway, any of that, what would you like to touch on?
Gosh, lots to touch on. Real quick on Xavier, this is a team that I think was like our last cut from our Field of 64 projection, just because we were like, is the Big East going to get to maybe we just kind of ran out of spots, but we liked their team. I didn't expect them, to win that series on the road. I'm all in on East Carolina this year. So interested to see how the Pirates bounce back next week against North Carolina in that traveling series, which I'll be attending. Louisville losing a series at home to Michigan State was stunning. With all respect to the Spartans, I mean, I think we picked them 15th in the 16-team Big Ten. Did not see that one coming. I didn't watch any of it. I don't really have much of a takeaway other than Parker Pico. I hope I'm saying his name right. Picot.
Yeah, it's Parker Pico. Yeah.
Pico. He went bananas. 8 RBIs, one of those games. Randy Seymour had a great weekend. I've actually always liked Randy Seymour. This is a guy that I've seen over the years in summer ball, I think, and he's got a good swing. And he had a couple of big games in those 2 wins for him. And so, and they pitched okay. I mean, they won a 4-3 game that first game. Aiden Donovan was awesome for him. So I don't know. I mean, you have my attention, Michigan State. I don't know how much to read into it. It's one of those weird early season things that put a pin on it and we'll kind of see on Michigan State. I'm not really worried about Louisville. We hammered them pretty good in the rankings. They deserved it. That's not a good weekend for them. No, but They didn't have Zion Rose. I think they'll be better when he's back, but like you still should win that series at home without one guy. They didn't pitch well at all on Saturday. Jake Bean and TJ Schlager both got let up, but those are good arms. Like I got to imagine they'll bounce back from that. So, one of those like hashtag that's baseball weekends for me for Louisville.
I think that's right. Michigan State has this way too of like they always have interesting pieces. It's just the struggle to like put it into a cohesive unit, right? Like they've had Joe Jurwa at the front of their rotation for
Yeah.
The previous last two years, and he's been at times as good as just about anybody. And it seems like they always have interesting pieces, and they'll have these moments when we're like, ooh, okay, maybe this is a team we should pay attention to, and then ultimately they end up fading in the Big Ten season. But this is probably that again. And for Louisville, I'm with you. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, they hit the ball okay. They hit over 300 as a team, so largely that was okay, and did so without Zion Rose. The team ERA was 6. They gave up 6 earned runs per game, but opponents only, the Michigan State only hit 237 for the series, so it's not like it was a laser show. I'm sure there were some free bases there and whatnot happening. So I don't. It just kind of feels like the type of series where there was probably a lot of things like Louisville didn't play that well. Michigan State did play well. And also there was just some bad luck along the way. It sounds like that was probably a little bit of what was happening. So I don't know. Shoulder shrug is kind of where I'm at with this series. And we'll kind of see how it goes after that.
Yeah, agreed. And then, you mentioned the Arizona stuff, Joe, Kansas State, that was the other team. I think that was the most, and Michigan, we talked about ranking both those teams. Kansas State was closer to the rankings heading into it. And that's a lineup that we all like. We had them as a regional team heading into the year. I actually like their arms too. Like they've got some veterans there on the mound from the left side in particular that I think can pitch. That I'm expecting steps forward from in their second years in Division One. So they have my attention. And Michigan, I talked to Tracy Smith in the preseason for one of our Rev series videos. And, he did seem to like his club. There were some questions to answer, but like going out there and beating Oregon State, Stanford, and Arizona is pretty loud. And, you can wonder maybe about how good all those teams are. Like, I do think Oregon State has elite pitching, but like has real question marks on the lineup. We thought that already. Arizona, same. And lost their All-America closer before the season started, and so like a team that has some questions to answer with their offense for sure. And Stanford, I think is better than they were last year and talented. But like how good are all those teams? I don't know, but like that's still a loud week for Michigan, and I think they have some very good talent on the mound. I think Tate Carey and at the front end, and then some of the bullpen guys like Gavin DeVoe and David Lally, like all real big arms. I mean, there's some real talent there, and I think in the lineup too, there's some athleticism, and I'm expecting. I'm expecting them to be a contender in the league this year. I mean, I don't know where we had them picked in our official Big Ten preview, but like I think they got a chance to be a regional team. I really do.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I failed to say, like I mentioned, I'm going to see K-State in weekend 2 of Globe Life. I'll also see Michigan. So that's going to be a good look at a couple of teams that are definitely catching eyes early in the season. On K-State, I should have mentioned when I was talking about their offensive explosion, a big weekend for D. Kennedy, 3 home runs this weekend, also swiped 4 bases. You might be asking, how good was his weekend? Well, how about an OPS of 2.010? Because his slugging percentage is 1385. So that's a pretty good weekend. Like 3-game sample, I get it. Like obviously that's not staying there, but anytime over a 3-game sample you're doing that kind of damage, you're swinging that pretty well.
And also, playing shortstop this year, which is new.
Yeah.
And he's a great athlete, rangy and kind of capable of making spectacular plays. I saw him kind of dazzle at times at third base. I saw him 2 weeks in a row there, Kansas State early last season. And like, his athleticism stands out, and we'll see if he can be a consistent defender at shortstop. But I know Coach Rooney was out there and saw him and said, like, yeah, like he can really make the special play at short at times. So again, we'll see about the consistency piece. But like, if he goes out and plays a good shortstop and rakes the way that I think he might be able to, because like he's got real bat speed, and he can do a lot of stuff, man. Like it's is he might wind up being a sneaky 5-tool guy, Joe. I mean, like it's if he hits, and like plays short, like he could rocket up boards.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like I was a little bit. I'll admit, I'll put my hand up. I was a little dubious of his ability to play shortstop. I was not so sure about that, but I have been dissuaded by folks who have seen him, and it sounds like that's going to work. So yeah, you're right. I mean, certainly a guy that he's toolsy. He's always been toolsy, and now it seems like he's putting it together as a fully formed baseball player, and that's pretty exciting, not just for K-State, but for his future prospects.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap, my friend.
Yeah, I feel like that's an episode. A couple of housekeeping things. If you're an SEC fan, Mark and I will have a new episode of Highway to Hoover later this week. We also, as part of the D1 Baseball podcast, we will have our weekend preview live streams Thursday night. So be on the lookout for that for when we go live. And those are always a lot of fun because we have some folks joining us, and we sometimes will field some questions kind of off the cuff and have a little fun there. So be on the lookout for that as well. But for now, that is it for the D1 Baseball Podcast. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Aaron for joining me here. And thank you, the listeners, for listening.